The heat hung heavy over Brownsville, Brooklyn. The hot asphalt exuded a smell of burning rubber mixed with oil and cigarette smoke. The walls of the old buildings, marked by time and faded graffiti, seemed to hold stories of ancient battles, both inside and outside the ring. In the middle of the cracked sidewalk, a silhouette advanced with a steady rhythm. It was Mike Tyson. Even long retired, the former champion still carried the imposing presence of a king. His shaved head gleamed under the scorching sun, and his muscles, though marked by time, still demonstrated the strength of his glory days. He wore a tight t-shirt and sporty shorts, displaying the posture of someone who never gives in. At his side walked Jake, his loyal pit bull with a gray coat and piercing gaze. Every step Jake took was a lesson in discipline and instinct. The dog needed no leash, for he knew exactly when to walk, stop, and observe, acting like a true urban warrior. Together, they formed a duo that inspired both respect and fear on the streets of Brooklyn. As they moved along the sidewalk, curious glances mixed with silent admiration. Tyson's fame was still part of his legacy, and those who knew him, even from afar, recognized that his presence was a sign of history and power. Amid this setting, Tyson waved to an old acquaintance, a man selling counterfeit watches on the sidewalk. "Our Mike, how are you, champ?" the man exclaimed with a mischievous smile. Tyson responded with a discreet smile, "Living, partner." "And you?" The old man laughed, pointing to the watches scattered on his towel. "Making a living the only way I can." This brief encounter underscored the spirit of the streets, where every survivor carried his own battle and wisdom. Soon, the sight of a flickering neon sign indicated the presence of an old refuge, the Brass Knuckle. The bar, known as a meeting point for retired fighters and desperate gamblers, was one of Tyson's favorite places to relive memories and confront the loneliness of the streets. He cast an attentive glance at Jake, who was breathing heavily and ever alert to his surroundings. "Let's go in for a bit, boy. See if these guys still know how to tell good stories," Tyson said, while Jake cautiously wagged his tail. Upon entering the bar, they were greeted by the distinctive smell of old beer and tobacco. The yellowish lighting created mysterious shadows in the corners, and an old television broadcast classic fight replays, many of them featuring Tyson himself, in moments of glory and controlled violence. The patrons, immersed in their conversations, paused for a moment to recognize the former champion, then resumed their activities, maintaining a silent respect for the legend. Tyson approached the counter and settled in, while Jake lay by his side, remaining vigilant. A burly bartender with scars that told stories of past battles approached and greeted him. "Good afternoon, Mike. The place is yours." With a nod, Tyson ordered a beer for himself and some water for Jake, and the employee quickly obliged. However, the calm of the establishment was abruptly interrupted when the bar's door burst open. 4 men entered. They were bikers, wearing worn leather jackets, heavy boots, and sporting tattoos that revealed lives marked by violence and rebellion. One of them, a bald brute with scars and an arrogant gaze, wasted no time recognizing Tyson. Well, if it isn't the legendary Mike Tyson." His companions laughed, and the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Tyson maintained his composure as the bald man approached and patted his shoulder mockingly. "You were tough in the 80s, huh? But now you just look like an old man walking a dog." Laughter echoed throughout the bar, yet Tyson's expression remained unruffled. Calmly, he took a sip of his beer. Jake, for his part, reacted to the touch with a deep growl, his fur bristling in alert. The aggressor, irritated, turned his gaze to the dog and taunted, "What's wrong, old man? Your little dog is pissed off?" Tension escalated instantly. Without any warning, the biker delivered a light kick to Jake's snout. The bar froze in a deadly silence. Jake recoiled slightly, and his growl intensified, resonating with a protective instinct that transcended fear. Tyson carefully set his cup down on the counter, took a deep breath, and in a gravelly, authoritative voice declared, "You just made a mistake." The bald man sneered, not understanding the gravity of his act. But Tyson's response would not be delivered in many words. Slowly, the former champion rose to his feet, every movement exuding the lethal precision of his glory days. The bald man stepped back, his confidence dwindling in the face of the aura of determination emanating from Tyson. With his head tilted, as in the moments before a decisive blow in the ring, Tyson clenched his fists with the force of lightning about to strike. The entire bar seemed to sense that this biker, the arrogant aggressor, would not leave unscathed. In a silence heavy with tension, the air vibrated with the promise of an impending storm. The patrons began to withdraw slowly, while the aggressor tried to compose himself. All right, my bad. Let's forget about it. Huh? The bald man attempted, his voice thick with a mixture of humiliation and fear. Tyson remained motionless, his gaze fixed and piercing. Suddenly, like a flash of lightning, Tyson advanced. His right fist rose in a precise arc and struck the side of the bald man's jaw with the force of thunder. The impact echoed through the bar, and the aggressor was momentarily lifted off the ground, falling with his head violently colliding against the edge of a table. The silence deepened, and the other bikers stood paralyzed in the face of Tyson's display of strength. Jake, by his owner's side, growled intensely, his eyes reflecting a mix of loyalty and contained fury. The bald man, now staggering, tried to lean on a table, blood streaming from a cut forming at the corner of his mouth. Still exuding a menacing calm, Tyson fixed his gaze on the aggressor and commanded, "Get up." In a hesitant movement, the biker complied, his trembling hand seeking support as his face twisted between wounded pride and palpable fear. But what followed was not a mere reprimand. With the audacity that only true fighters possess, the aggressor spat on the ground and, in a poorly calculated impulse of revenge, pulled a folding knife from his pocket. In an instant, Jake reacted, darting forward quickly, his fur standing on end and a threatening growl emanating, ready to defend his owner at any cost. One of the biker's friends, a nervous-looking man with a thin mustache, tried to intervene. "Rick, don't do it." But the warning was not enough. The aggressor, now brandishing the knife, lunged at Tyson, his intent to humiliate and hurt renewed. However, the former champion's experience prevailed. With an almost imperceptible sidestep, Tyson dodged the blade, grabbed the aggressor's wrist firmly, and in a short, precise motion, twisted the man's arm. The sound of bone cracking rang out amid the controlled chaos of the bar, and the aggressor fell to his knees, clutching his own arm as a cry echoed through every corner. Jake moved even closer, growling fiercely, while the other bikers, intimidated, dared not move. With calculated coldness, Tyson picked up the fallen knife and threw it onto the counter, symbolizing the immediate end of that provocation. In a grave tone, he addressed the bartender. "If he tries to come back here, you already know what to do." No further words were necessary as the atmosphere filled with silent respect, and the bartender nodded in understanding. Jake, ever vigilant, gave a slight nod of approval, signaling that the lesson was learned. Then Tyson turned toward the door and, with firm steps, left the bar. Outside, the cool air of the street contrasted sharply with the lingering tension inside. The former champion and his loyal companion continued on their way, the weight of the recent battle slowly settling in. A reminder that in Brooklyn, the ghosts of the past are never far behind, and every action has its inevitable consequences. As Tyson and Jake disappeared into the dark street, the heavy atmosphere of the bar seemed to immortalize the moment. Murmurs among the patrons blended with the distant sounds of engines and hurried footsteps. Every glance reflected the fear and respect that Tyson's legend inspired, a reminder that in the concrete jungle, the past always finds a way to resurface. In that instant, the night seemed to promise that street justice would not be easily forgotten, and that new stories of courage and revenge were only just beginning. That night marked the prelude to new challenges that would transform the relentless landscape of Brooklyn. The late afternoon sun bathed the streets of Brooklyn in a golden hue, yet inside the brass knuckle, the tension remained palpable. The bar's patrons watched the door as if trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. "Rick," the bald biker, lay on the floor, moaning in pain and clutching his broken arm, while his companions remained motionless, torn between helping and accepting defeat. The bartender, with an air of resignation, wiped down a glass, knowing he had seen many brawls, but this scene was different. Outside, Tyson and Jake strolled calmly. The champion rubbed his hands as if trying to dust off the remnants of the fight and offered a smile to his loyal dog. "Good job, boy. You kept your cool," Tyson murmured, and Jake responded with a slight wag of his tail. Yet Tyson knew that this episode was far from over. Brooklyn had never been a place where one could walk away from a fight without facing repercussions. Tyson, honed on streets filled with brawls, underground bets, and memories of humiliation, understood this price all too well. Already away from the bar, a familiar sound interrupted their steps, the roar of motorcycles approaching. Tyson stopped, and Jake sniffed the air, his fur bristling. "Yeah, partner, looks like we're about to have some company," came the unspoken message. They found themselves near a narrow alley, a passage between old buildings where few dared to look. Tyson quickly assessed the situation. Staying on the street risked being surrounded. Entering the alley meant less space, but also fewer chances to be flanked. In a moment of decision, Tyson commanded, "Come on, Jake," and together, they entered the alley. Moments later, 3 bikers halted at the entrance. The first to dismount was a tall man clad in a black leather jacket, with a prominent scar on his chin that spoke of past battles, exuding the aura of a leader. "Tyson, you think you can invade our territory, hurt one of ours, and walk away as if nothing happened?" he challenged. Tyson crossed his arms and replied coldly, "It was him who started it." The leader laughed, but his eyes held no humor. "Maybe, but you know how it works? Now pay the price." Jake growled, sensing the hostility in the air. Another biker, wielding an iron pipe, banged his hand on his palm and declared, "Let's do this the hard way." Tyson sighed, removed his sunglasses, and with steadfast shoulders retorted, "Do you really think this is going to end well for you?" The confrontation exploded in an instant. The first blow came swiftly. The man with the pipe advanced, attempting to strike Tyson on the shoulder, but the champion dodged by mere inches and grabbed his wrist with force. In a devastating move, Tyson twisted the aggressor's arm and delivered a short hook to his stomach, causing the biker to bend over as the air escaped his lungs. Before he could react further, Tyson spun and landed a right cross to his chin, sending the man crashing to the ground without even touching it. The other 2 hesitated for a moment, but it was too late to retreat. The leader, still determined, swung a chain through the air, aiming for Tyson's face. In the final second, Tyson ducked, and Jake darted forward with agility. In an impressive leap, the pit bull grabbed the sleeve of the biker's jacket, unbalancing him. While the third aggressor tried to seize the distraction to attack, Tyson, ever alert, pivoted on his heels and delivered a devastating punch to his chest. The impact was so strong that the biker staggered 3 steps, coughing violently. Tyson gave no chance for recovery, unleashing a series of strikes. A jab, another, and a perfect uppercut. The final blow sent the aggressor crashing against the alley wall, leaving him unconscious. Now, only the leader remained. With eyes filled with fear, he stepped back a few paces, breathing heavily. Tyson, pointing his chin, coldly asked, "Do you really want to continue?" The man, glancing at his already fallen comrades, hesitated and took another step back, raising his hands. Tyson offered a half smile and declared, "All right, it's over." The leader muttered under his breath, turned around, and fled to his motorcycle. Tyson patted Jake on the neck and, smiling, said, "Good work, boy." With that, the pit bull wagged his tail, and the champion exhaled deeply as he left the alley, aware that in Brooklyn every story always brings new developments. Now, all he wanted was a hamburger. The sunlight was beginning to fade, tinting the Brooklyn buildings with shades of orange and red. Mike Tyson walked the streets with the calm of one who has faced countless battles, and by his side, Jake trotted along with steady steps, ever vigilant. Yet an unease hung in the air. Tyson knew that an enemy's pride rarely subsides completely and that new threats could emerge at any moment. Determined to satisfy his hunger, Tyson crossed the avenue and entered Frankie's small diner. Frankie's Grill, a modest refuge where the aroma of charcoal-grilled hamburgers blended with a welcoming atmosphere. Frankie, always in good spirits, greeted the former champion with enthusiasm. "If it isn't Brooklyn's greatest." "Hey, Mike." Tyson smiled and took a seat at the counter, ordering a double hamburger for himself and a plate of grilled chicken for Jake, reaffirming the affection he held for his loyal companion. While Frankie prepared the order, the diner's tranquility was interrupted by the entrance of three men in dark suits, their faces serious and their stares cold. One of them, tall and thin with a scar on his cheek, approached the counter and, fixing his gaze on Tyson, said, "You caused quite a stir today, champ." The atmosphere instantly filled with unexpected tension, and Frankie stopped cooking, watching with apprehension. The man with the scar continued, "Rick is part of a larger group, those who keep order in the streets. We don't like it when a man like you changes the rules." Tyson, calmly, wiped his hand with a napkin and replied, "I didn't change any rules. I only gave the right response to a mistake." Laughing, the man retorted, "I understand, but the streets don't care about what's right or wrong. They demand balance." Meanwhile, Jake, lying next to Tyson, lifted his head, his eyes alert, as the mood grew increasingly heavy. Leaning in, the man with the scar offered one last chance. "Settle this without more fights. Pay a compensation, and we'll ensure no one bothers you again." Tyson laughed, shook his head, and in a tense silence, took a bite of his double hamburger, answering without words. The men exchanged glances and, without further ado, left the restaurant, leaving Frankie visibly relieved. After the brief tension, Tyson left some money on the counter and departed with Jake. The streets, now quieter, seemed to reflect a momentary calm, but the champion knew that enemies rarely give up easily. He patted Jake gently on the neck and walked through the shadows, alert to any sign of retaliation. That night, as the city lights turned on and the shadows lengthened, Tyson returned home. He sat on the couch, with Jake resting at his feet, and grabbed a bag of ice to soothe the knots in his fingers. In a solitary smile, he acknowledged that although the physical fight might have ended, the internal battle and constant vigilance would never cease. Brooklyn was unforgiving, where past and present intertwined, and every act of courage or revenge transformed into legend. Tyson looked at Jake and said, "I think we did a good job today, boy." The pit bull, as if understanding, gently wagged his tail. With his eyes closed for a moment, Tyson let the night absorb his reflections, aware that the true fight was always about to begin again. Meanwhile, in the dark corners of the city, shadows moved and voices whispered that the story was far from over. In Brooklyn, the struggle for respect and survival never ends. It is renewed every day, with every challenge, with every blow. And so, the legend of Mike Tyson, the champion of the streets, would continue to echo through the avenues and alleys, inspiring those who, even after so many battles, still find the strength to rise and fight again. In the quiet of the night, as the stars timidly emerged in the sky, Tyson reflected on the paths he had taken and the battles he had fought. Every scar told a story of overcoming, and every victory, even the smallest, fortified his indomitable spirit. With Jake by his side, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, courage and loyalty would always guide them. And so, with steady steps, he moved forward, ready to face whatever destiny had in store, keeping alive the flame of a legend that would never be extinguished. This journey was eternal, and each day brought the promise of renewal and victory. Did you enjoy this story full of courage and intensity? Then like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more impactful narratives like this one. Turn on notifications so you don't miss a single chapter of this thrilling saga. And now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when you had to fight for respect? Share your experience in the comments and inspire others with your journey.